Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with all your remarks and your questions. I want to just say that when Secretary Tillerson outlined the administration's intentions in Syria in a speech at the Hoover Institution, as the chairman mentioned, he laid out a whole list of goals, and I just hope that those goals remain goals that we are trying to move forward with. The problem is, while ISIS is obviously the worst of the worst, the way I looked at Syria, and still do, is that our goal should not have been only the defeat of ISIS. That should have been one of our goals, but should not have been the only goal. I really think that the defeat of Assad was a parallel goal and should have had the priority that it had. And unfortunately, I think under both the two administrations, it really hasn't been. Assad is just a butcher and a murderer, and it just breaks my heart that we didn't offer support to the Syrian people when they needed it the most. The Wall Street Journal reported this week that the administration was looking to set up an Arab force to take the place of U.S. troops in Syria. So let me ask either of you some questions. Who would contribute fighters to this force? How would the transition take place? Who would train the fighters? Would the United States continue to have some holding force? To what extent is this feasible, considering how thin the region is? Spread in Yemen, would Egypt send fighters to Syrian areas not controlled by Assad? Would the United States continue to provide air cover? How effective would these fighters be, considering we haven't seen these forces be effective in Yemen or the Sinai? Those are just some questions about this. Can either one of you tell me about this Arab force and how much have we thought this out?
Ranking Member Engel, the President has made clear he wishes to see the U.S. Continue and complete the campaign against ISIS in northeast Syria. The President has also made clear he believes regional and local parties, regional and local forces need to take on this struggle as they themselves are directly exposed to the consequences of a resurgence of ISIS. Therefore, we are reaching out to partners across the region to see what form of contribution, and not just financial, they may make to sustaining this fight beyond the destruction of ISIS.
You see, while I agree with everything you've said, Ambassador, to me, the ISIS is one prong of something, an important prong, but one prong of what we should be doing. I really think to rid the Syria of the butcher Assad ought to be as important as our ISIS concerns.
I strongly agree with you that a Syria in which Assad remains as leader, this regime, is not a Syria which we would predict to be meaningfully secure or stable, or not a source of generation of threat and violent extremism under whatever name in the future. And it's why we have strongly supported a political process led by the UN. Unfortunately, that political process has been blocked, and the parties responsible for blocking it are quite clear. It's the Syrian regime itself and the Russians, who, through their absence of pressure on the regime in Damascus, contributes to, enables this freezing of a Geneva process which virtually the entire international community supports.
And through their veto in the United Nations.
Exactly, sir.
Yeah. Is the State Department satisfied with the current communication channels in place with Russia to deconflict issues in Syria? Since Russia became militarily engaged in Syria, they've relied extensively on resupply by air. These flights, both military and chartered civil flights, cross the airspace of many of our partners, including Georgia and Iraq. What discussions has the U.S. had with our partners about closing their respective airspace to such Russian flights?
Ranking Member, our discussions in the deconfliction channel, which is quite robust with Russia, have focused on deconfliction of forces on the ground, in the air, in Syria, not on the broader areas that you touch on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.